Welcome everybody to the Mind, Body, and Soul television show coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado Internet TV studios. I'm your host, Coach Steve Toth, and I also started ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com well over 10 years ago. And we're not only streaming on ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com, but also on YouTube Live as well as Google Hangouts. So welcome everybody, and definitely I want to introduce our guest this afternoon, who's going to be very interesting and very intriguing, I am absolutely sure. Her name is Bonnie Bruderer, and she's an author. She has written multiple books. She's also a coach, and we'll find out what else she's up to. And I think she's joining us from New York somewhere, right?
I am, yes. Chelsea, New York, right in the heart of
Awesome. Yeah, welcome to the show, Bonnie.
Thank you.
I was just in New York a little while back. It hasn't changed from the time I left.
No, it's I don't know when you left, but I live in a high construction zone, so it's changing every day. Every time I leave the house, there's a new high rise.
Bonnie, I probably left before you were born.
Okay. Just a tad.
Okay, I'm going to be exact. I left in 1978.
Well, God bless you. I was 6 then.
Okay, great. You look fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
Awesome. So the theme of the show is how to design the life you want. But before we get started on that, if I took away author, coach, and anything else that anybody has ever called you, like a partner, a girlfriend, a business partner, whatever title people have called you all your life, if I took all this away, what's left? Who is really Bonnie Bruderer?
That's a really interesting question. The truth is, all of those things are a part of me. So I am someone that's very curious. I'm someone that is very passionate about most things that I engage in. I have a big heart, and I think that's what drew me to the career that I have. I was actually born here in New York, although I grew up in California, and my dad said that the first night in the nursery, he came in and every single baby was asleep except for me. I was looking around, ready to go. And that's pretty much how I've lived my life. I've had a very exciting life. I've lived all over the world. I've, as we'll talk about, done some pretty crazy and amazing and incredible things. So that's pretty much what I'm all about.
Awesome. Well, I lived all over the world too. So there.
Good. We'll have a lot to talk about.
So my experience tells me after interviewing and having these dialogues with thousands and thousands of people, that whatever you become passionate about, and it's obvious that you're very passionate about designing your own life as well as helping others to design theirs, and I feel that you walk the talk. But was it always this way, or was there a time in your life when you did not know how to design the life that you wanted, and you were maybe confused or not clear?
A little bit of both. I definitely didn't grow up with a lot of personal development skills, dream it, you can do it, but I was always a very imaginative child. My dad says that I had these invisible friends, Bianca, I can't remember their names, but they had these crazy names, and I was always making kids in the neighborhood play. It was never just like, hey, want to play Barbies? I would say, let's play real estate agents and sell these houses, and I would, create clubs and do all these things. So I think inherently it was something in me that knew that you could always have and be and do more. Personally, what sought me to seek out the knowledge and information and skill set that I now have was that I did have a very challenging childhood in a lot of ways. I had a mother who was very sick, who passed away when I was quite young, 23 years old. And I had a lot of responsibility, being the oldest child and a girl, and so I really had to go through a very dark and hard time in order to, to seek out enough information to realize, wow, you can create a life that you want. You don't have to just go down the path that was given to you. And so, 18 years later, I'm an avid studier, reader, constantly, taking on new information in order to share that with others.
Awesome. So, in terms of, I know that you must be very, very passionate about helping people designing the life that they love. And I'm just curious, in your experience, what does it take for people to even realize that they are already designing the life that they want or not want?
Well, that's a big one. This is 1 hour.
That they already a master.
So, okay, that's very fascinating because I do a number of things right now, and I think it directly applies to this. So, willingness is the biggest thing. People a lot of times just, again, accept what's given to them, or they think, my dad did this, so I need to do this, or I can only make this amount of money because I'm from this neighborhood. And I don't believe any of that. I've completely turned that upside down, both with myself and with other clients. But I have a private practice where I work with people that want to achieve their goals, and then I also work in institutions. I work for a lot of financial investment companies, and I coach people that aren't necessarily seeking this, but maybe their boss sought it for them or something like that. And the reason I bring that up is that when you want something and you're willing to change, it's so much easier than to try to convince somebody that, hey, more is possible. If you just change this little thing on your mindset, your entire world will change. So I believe, to answer directly, it's really the willingness and then the acceptance that everything that's happened to us is part of our creation and part of our doing, and we do have the power to shift that.
Mm-hmm. So would you say, Bonnie, that people would have to, in a way, be aware that there is more than what they have or where they are, or be aware that they in their comfort zone and life is just kind of chugging along just like the clocks do. They just always keep going around and around and around. Do you think there comes a place and a time in everybody's life? Like I had somebody say this the other day, and I'm still pondering this because it's awesome. I interviewed somebody that said there are only two important days in everybody's life. The first one is when we are born, and the second one is when we realize why we were born. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. I think there can be as many important days as you choose in life. I'm sure there's a lot of depth, and I'd have to chew on that one for a while. But I think that, people do need awareness, of course. But also, I feel like, I'm such a believer in the law of attraction, and I love the movie The Secret. I've seen it close to 20 times. However, I feel like the message that was put out there in a lot of, the media and a lot of material that's out there is materialistic. I think just with awareness, you can shift your life, to be happy every day, or to have joy, or to have things that aren't necessarily what we would seek as, improving or better, although they are. It's much better to be happy than not happy. I know that for sure. But, in every moment we can choose what we want to design. Like, for example, yesterday I needed to go to the post office in New York. That's like an all-day affair, and there's, 50 people in line. And I first had that, and then I thought, what if I just enjoyed this? What if I caught up on a couple emails? What if I, just made a friend and had a good time? And by the time I got up to the front, half hour later, I made best friends with this old man that worked behind the counter and was so joyful. And I thought, gosh, here most people have this negative experience and response, but you can really choose in any moment to create something great.
Wow, that's interesting. I had a very similar experience yesterday, and I want to share that because it's very appropriate. And I handled it a little bit differently than you did. Not that there is a right way or wrong way to handle it, but I was at I was at Walmart. Okay, might as well. Well, I might as well say it. And so I've been at Walmart several times this month, and I'd like to go there because obviously they have good pricing, and I usually find all the things that I immediately need right then and there. And every time I've gone in there, they have somewhere around 42 cash registers, and they only have usually 4 or 5 people working. And this happened last night, and there were probably 25 to 30 people at each register. It's taking about 40 minutes to get through the line. And 10 minutes into the waiting, I said, okay, this is not working for me. This isn't acceptable way of doing business, and if they are unwilling to change it, I'm not going to support them anymore. So I went up to the register while I was in the line and said, could you call the manager for me, please? I'd like to speak to him or her. And she said, okay. So I was in the line for another 20 minutes, and by the time I got in front of the register, there's still no manager. And I said, and I was just smiling. I wasn't upset. But what was interesting, in the meantime, while I got there, the person that was at the register when I asked for the manager got all upset with me, and she said, well, I had to stay in line just like everybody else has to. And I did, and I said, well, that's great for you, but it's not acceptable to me. So just because everybody else is doing it, I don't have to do it. I can choose not to do it. And it's totally up to me. And then people were grumbling at the back of the line as well, and I basically said to everybody is that the reason why we are living in the kind of world we're living in, because in my estimation, 90% of the people in the world are good people. 10% are bad people. But guess what? Because of the 90% of people that are unwilling to put their hand up and say, guess what? My truth is that this doesn't work for me, and it has to somehow change. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make a difference. And that's why we're living in the world we're living in. And then I just shut up and went through my business. Well, the manager never showed up. And so I basically said to the I asked the clerk. I said, well, why do you think there's only 4 or 5 cash register people working all the time? And she said, well, because people are either get fired or they don't pass the drug test. Mm. Isn't that interesting? And that was the truth.
Yeah, and that's your criteria. And a lot, you know, to your point, that it goes to the same sentiment as awareness. It's that you're stating, just because this is the way it is, and just because this is what everyone else accepts, I'm not accepting that in life. And I'm going to create my own result, or I'll order online next time, or whatever, you know, whatever you're...
I go to a different store. This is not something I'm willing to do. I don't have 40 minutes to waste. That 40 minutes I will never get back. It's gone.
Right. Yeah, you choose how you spend it. And I've had that with so many clients, you know, that will come with the same experience in life, you know, whether they were divorced or whether they had a rough childhood or something, and they go down 2 completely different paths, and it's really just because one had the awareness that more was possible. And that's our tagline, you know, with the university I teach, Create You, is you change your mind and you change your world. So what you did there, you're changing your world. You're not going to stand for that.
So I wasn't interested in changing anybody there. I hope you noticed that. That was not my purpose.
Yeah.
My purpose was I just wanted to share my truth, because this was my truth and this is how I feel. And you do with it whatever you want, and then I make my own choice if I'm going to be back here based on how I'm treated. And the way I was treated, that the manager didn't even show up, I'm not going to go back there.
Right.
I'm done. Yeah. Moving on.
Done. On to target.
You know why? Because I live my life these days, and this took me a long time to figure out. You're probably much faster than I am. But it took me most of my time until the last 2 years. I finally got to the point where the way I live my life is very simple. If it feels good, I do it. If it doesn't, I'm moving on.
Yes.
That's how simple it is. And that experience that I'm just sharing this for the benefit of the viewers. That experience that I had last night, it didn't feel good. So I'm not going to recreate it. I mean, I could recreate it by going back, but I'm not interested.
Well, that's what a lot of people do. They just keep recreating their past or their what they think is suitable for them, rather than again being conscious of the life that they want to design for themselves.
Yeah. So I'm curious. You have these 7 steps to love the life that you want. I would be really interested, and I'm sure our viewers too, if you could go through those steps, because I think we would provide a lot of value and serve our viewers.
Sure. So the first thing, and this is critically important, is obviously to know what you don't want in life. So just like the example you shared with Walmart, it's knowing what you don't want, what's not okay for you, what you won't stand for. A lot of times that comes from, relationships that didn't work, family patterns, job, situations, and really defining what you're just taking a stand on and won't put up with in your life. The second step is knowing what you do want. It's very important to know what you want, and I try to have people imagine if they had a magic wand. And it's interesting, I've coached over 7,000 people from all over the world in my days and my travels, and the majority of people that sit down in front of you, whether on Skype or in person, and you ask what they want, they give you a blank stare. They have no idea, or they start telling you what they don't want.
Yeah, that's my experience too. What our people are dedicated to or committed to is what they don't want.
Right.
They absolutely clear about what they don't want, but they have no clue what it is they do want. So I just want to share this with you. So over 10 years ago when I started this network, the questions I was asking people, who are you? What do you want? And how are you going to get what you want? And guess what I experienced? Silence.
Yes.
And I said, well, we can't have this on the show. So I replaced my first question with what I asked you earlier, which is if I take away everything that anybody has ever called you, what's left? And that's what I've been doing ever since, because I can't ask the other questions because most people don't know.
Right.
Well, back then I didn't attract to myself, all the great coaches and through the law of attraction, all the great people that I'm having on the network now, because now it would be different. Yes. I guarantee it. If I asked you those questions, you would know exactly the answers to those questions.
Yes. So knowing what you don't want, knowing what you want, and then the next step is being honest about why you're stuck. What has kept you stuck? People do what they do either to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. So you have to understand why you are where you are, and really what you're doing, what you're willing to do to get unstuck from there. And then the next phase that I have everybody do is I have them create what I call a soul sentence. And this is really a purpose sentence, a mission statement. We all know, there's certain stores or chains that you go into and you know exactly what to expect. With Starbucks, I think theirs is something like when you're here, you're family. And so if you go into Starbucks in Turkey or a Starbucks in Manhattan, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. They're going to have your size, you're going to wait in line, there's going to be green and brown colors. And that's really what a soul sentence is. It's about having this guiding light for you so that whenever you have choices or decisions to make, you run it by that soul sentence. And if it matches up, great, you go for it. And if it doesn't, then it's all about making a different choice.
So mine is I want to touch, move, and inspire people. What's yours?
Mine is very similar. The purpose of my life is to have passion, health, and happiness, and to spread love and joy to others.
Okay, great.
So,
awesome.
And I've had times in my life where even just one of those components were in violation. I worked in the personal development field, as I said, for 18 years, doing various things. I worked for a lot of the very famous speakers, Tony Robbins, for Christopher Howard, Harvey Mackay. And one time I couldn't figure out why I was so unhappy in my life and nothing was working, and it was literally because I was working 20 hours in a row, sometimes 30 days a week, 30 days a month, 20 hours a day, and it just wasn't healthy. So that one thing felt like that much. I don't even know if there are 30 hours in a day.
It doesn't matter. I don't really use time anymore, but it's interesting because I started personal development with Tony Robbins. He was only 20 years old.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah.
Yep.
Good. So,
Kaspersky program. It was amazing.
I love him. So yes, so having your soul sentence. And then the next step is really setting goals in each category of your life. And I say category because it's important to not just have one goal to go after. If you have a financial goal and then you just put everything in one bucket and you go for that, other areas of your life will suffer. So you don't have sustainable happiness and long-term joy. So I have people define goals in the area of their health, their relationships, their finances, and how they manage their time. So 4 goals that you want to achieve over the next year in each of those categories. And again, everything has to match up with your soul sentence. So all of those goals need to be in alignment and congruent, otherwise, there's no point. And then the next piece is taking massive action. And this is where, again, a lot of people, they saw The Secret. They're like, ooh, just think about what you want and it happens. Well, that's great.
No.
And when that does, that'd be nice every day. But sometimes a little more effort, I'd say 99% of the time, is needed. And so it's taking massive action and being committed consistently to your goal. We've all heard the analogy, if you want to lose 50 pounds, you can't just go to the gym once and go, okay, great, I did it. You have to consistently go. You have to watch what you eat. So once you've defined your goals, making sure that you're taking consistent and constant action. And then the next piece, which is, again, where a lot of people kind of fall off the wagon, is perseverance. A lot of times with goals and things that are worthwhile to achieve, the universe or your little brothers or whatever whatever you can imagine will throw a wrench in your plan. And a lot of times, especially spirit-minded people, I find say, oh, it's a sign. It's a sign it wasn't meant to be. Not maybe.
No, it's just a test.
No, it's just hard. Yeah, it's just hard. That's how life is sometimes.
It's just a test to see if you drop the ball or you continue on.
Yeah, and how bad do you want it? That's one of my favorite questions, really, how bad do you want it? And so perseverance is so important, and that's where I'd say most people that don't quite accomplish goals, they fall short. It's in the perseverance piece, where they just either give up, they think it's too hard. That's something that I'm so grateful to my parents. I remember my dad saying at one point to me, I was like, but it's hard. And he's like, who told you it was going to be easy? And that really stuck with me. It really, made me realize, like, oh, yeah, I guess everything doesn't have to be easy. And, if something's worthwhile, it's sometimes worth sacrifice and perseverance and just putting your head down. I was an endurance athlete for 10 years. I did competitive triathlon and Ironman and marathons all over the world. And that, really comes in handy because there's no time in a marathon when you don't want to give up after about mile 4 or 5. And so, applying that same mindset to any goal is very helpful. And then the last piece, and my favorite piece of all, is remembering your goals and dreams as if they've already occurred. So we've all heard, act as if, and if you can dream it, you can do it. And I feel that there's so much power in that. Just, visualizing your goals, but from the perspective of you already have them, and being grateful for the feelings and the emotions. I have something that I created called Remembering Forward, and my best friend and I do it all the time. We just call each other, and we say, remember when I got that new Porsche Macan? Or remember when you win the lottery? And, over the years, we've been doing this for about 15 years. Most of the things that we've remembered, barring the lottery, have come true. So marriages, children, puppies. I have my little puppy right here who is a Remember Forward.
Oh, how cute.
And book tour.
The puppy came from Remember Forward?
She did. Actually, she's a funny story. She was on my vision board, and it wasn't my dog. It was actually my friend's dog. And I'll tell that story in a minute because it's a good one. But, well, actually, it applies here. So I wanted a dog for years, but I traveled with Tony Robbins for 6 years, and so I was on the road 35 weeks out of the year, so I couldn't have one. And then I finally settled in Marin County, California, and I really wanted a dog. And my best friends had got this dog for their children, 2 children, and I fell in love with the dog, Ginger. And so I would try to make my vision boards, and I would put other dogs on there that kind of looked like her, but in my mind, I was always thinking, I love Ginger. Like, I would put a picture on my vision board, and I would say, this is the dog I want, but in my mind, it was Ginger. Well, lo and behold, within a year, they had a family emergency. Their daughter became very ill. She's thankfully fine now, but they weren't able to keep Ginger, and while they were in the hospital with the daughter, they asked if I could go get her at the doggy daycare. So here I go get Ginger, pouring down rain. This poor little dog has been, a neighbor just dumped her off there when they had their emergency. And we come home, and I literally opened a closet where I had already purchased food, toys, a leash, everything, because I was so convicted that I was going to have this in my life. I was going to have a dog, and I was going to have this experience. And so it was just like, well, you're home. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, they were fine, and their daughter was better, and they said, we're really sorry, we can't keep her anymore. Is there any way you can keep her until we find a new home? I was like, don't worry about it. We're good. So anyway, I believe so strongly in the power of intention and manifesting and focusing on what you truly want in life, and then, go drive that new Porsche if that's what you desire, and feel how it feels. Smell that leather. Put that brochure on. I look over at my fridge because that's where my whole fridge is a vision board. But go try on that wedding dress. If you want to get married, don't wait till you have the ring. Go try on the wedding dress and see how that feels. Bring your best girlfriend. Have some champagne. What's the harm in that? And what happens so much in life is then you create it. You live into what your goals and your dreams are.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, what a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've done it with a lot of clients over the years. I constantly get texts and calls, and you're never going to believe what happened. I'm like, try me. I know how this stuff works.
I could give you so many examples. It works the same way, in my life. When I wanted a BMW, I had the BMW in front of me all the time, and next thing I know, I have the BMW. That's it.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I don't know what your circumstance was prior to that, but a lot of times it's very unreachable. I remember when I wanted to move to New York from California, which is not an easy thing, let me tell you. And I would just put pictures of apartments and things on my board, and I would have no idea how I was going to do it, or what. I had no man, no plan, no job here, nothing lined up. But I was just convinced, like, what's going to happen? I would picture Ginger running around in Central Park. I would just picture. Well, the other day I looked back at an old photograph from my Sausalito apartment, and I saw my vision board, and I thought, oh my gosh, my apartment looks just like that. Like, the gray wall behind me was on the picture that I cut out. And a funny thing, I ended up getting a tattoo when I moved to New York. It says love. It's my reminder always. Like, when people look at their watch, I look at that and just remember to love always in all circumstances. But on this vision board above my apartment was the word in this same American typewriter font cut out from a card, which I don't even remember. I don't even know where that came from, why I put it there. Haven't had that vision board for 2 years, but I went, wow, everything that you put in front of you ends up occurring, positive and negative. So you have to be careful.
So what is attracting you to New York? I'm curious, because I was just there a little bit over a month ago, and I still find it to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Everybody is very fast. People are still not that friendly. Everybody's yelling and screaming. The cabs are still running around like their head is cut off. Everybody's still trying to position themselves on the avenues, and whoever gets in front of you is the one that's going to get wherever they're going. A studio apartment costs $2,600 a month. What's the attraction?
Pretty much all of that.
Pretty much all of that.
So here's in essence, Sex in the City. Here I was in California. It's a grass is always greener syndrome, but it's also kind of a goal vision boardy thing in that, here you watch all these episodes of Sex in the City, and you watch movies, and you see all this, amazingness in New York. And I think for me, I always had on my list, metaphorical list, that I was going to live here for a few years. And so I woke up on my 40th birthday 2 years ago, and in a panic in the middle of the night. And I hadn't really been thinking about New York, but I just thought, that's one goal that I haven't achieved. I've lived in London, I've lived in Sydney, I've lived in Fiji, but I haven't been to New York, and it hit me. I thought my window's going to close. Eventually I'm going to get married and have a family, and I'll miss that, kind of like running around in taxis and drinking Cosmos. And so I literally started on my vision board, and 2 months later I was here. And so for me, it's a tick. It's a tick off the list. I don't think that I'll stay here forever. What I've found is there's so much opportunity. Everything that you said is all true. It's hustle and bustle. I also have a calmness that I've never had anywhere else. I think because, in New York you can never catch up, or you can never stay on top of everything. So there's almost an anonymity. Like it feels safe to kind of pull back. Because no one cares anyway. Everyone's out doing what they're doing. Right? So
that's very
true.
It's a
little comforting. Yeah. And then also the opportunity.
I went to have breakfast, and this hasn't happened to me for a long time because this only happens in New York. It's like as soon as I finished my breakfast, the energy was like, if you're done, sir, please pay and get the hell out of here so we can have the next customer.
Oh, yeah. When I first moved here, it's like if you do not have your coffee and bagel order ready when you're in line, you're going to get trampled. Like you literally, it was like the most stressful, like, oh yeah, bagel with cream cheese, no coffee, black, boom. But you learn to kind of love it. Like I've been caught in the rain and stuck on subways. I've had every like crazy New York thing happen, and I'm choosing to enjoy it. I know it's a snippet of time. I know in 5 years, I'll be in some neighborhood in suburbia, driving an SUV with screaming kids in the back, just going, ugh, remember when I could go out every night and take taxis? And so I'm just enjoying it.
That's funny. I don't know how we got off on the subject, but here's the interesting thing is that when I lived in New York, I lived there for 3 years, and it is no fun to live in New York when you have no money. But I think it's a completely different experience when you do have some money, because it's a whole other world opens that's not accessible to anybody without money. Is that accurate from your experience?
Well, that's on my vision board to find out. I don't know. I mean, okay. What I love about New York, yes, it's 3 times more expensive. My apartment here is double. But you're able to make a lot more money here, too. The opportunity I have found is tremendous. So I kind of look at it as like an equal. I try not to look at what I'm spending because I am making a lot more. But I do know, from in the beginning when I had first moved here and I had no clients, it is pretty miserable when you're taking the subway and it's 2 degrees and, your dog has icicles on his little eyes and you're not able to afford what you want. But then, you can take a taxi. Then I started building my clientele, and then I could take a taxi, and then I graduated to Uber. And it's pretty good. It's nice. I feel fortunate I'm able to do what I want without having to worry. But I definitely, I do want to know what it feels like to have I look outside, I can see Nicole Kidman's apartment, and I imagine it's a little different. She has a whole floor, it's all glass, and so I aim to, that's my next hurdle, that's where we're going. So I'll let you know. I'll get back to you on that.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. All right, so here's the other thing that I think I would be curious to hear from you about, and that's relationships. I think you wrote a book about relationships, and do you do some relationship coaching as well?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Is that one of your passions?
It is. Very much so, and that's always been a passion of mine. I wrote a book called Be the One, and it's a guide to discover your soulmate within. So instead of searching outward for your soulmate, as they say, become it, and then you can attract it everywhere. You can attract it in a male-female relationship, female-female, male-male, best friend, but you get, if you're looking externally in any relationship to be complete or to have, something fulfilled, it's generally failure. So my whole theory is, fill yourself up first, and then number 1, you don't need anything, which is great. But then number 2, it just opens you up for so much more in the way of relationships.
Yeah. I've been on that boat for quite some time. I basically, after my second marriage ended, I basically said I am not ready for this. Since this is my second one, and since then I also had some unfortunate and not ending necessarily well relationships. I finally decided that I need to take a break and just focus on myself and just, like you said, those words are perfect, filling myself up, so that I don't need somebody for whatever reason I have chosen before that I needed them. Like, I could give you a list of things that I thought I needed from a woman, and I don't feel that way anymore. I am at a place now where I am complete and full just the way I am, and I love myself. And it doesn't matter if I find the woman of my dreams or not. I'm still going to be happy,
Right.
just being here or not.
Very much so. That's very well said. Very true. And it's a hard thing for people because I think generally, people feel better in relationships. So they either choose somebody that's not the right partner or they haven't done the work themselves.
Yeah, but that's not really true. I just want to say that they think that they're going to feel better when they're in a relationship, but what actually ends up happening is the good times and within 6 months to a year. I know it because this is how it happened for me. I always picked the wrong women because my antenna was searching for the ones that I was attracted to, and they were the ones that were actually the ones that would be teaching me the most, but I was resisting the teaching.
Yeah. Yes, that happens too. Yeah. And also just, communication. I'm a big studier, practicer, advocate of learning the differences between, if we're talking in this respect, male-female relationships, we're very different creatures. One of my favorite teachers is Alison Armstrong, and she says, ladies, do not treat men like they're a big, hairy woman. Like, they're different. We speak different languages. So, just as if you were from, Portugal and you speak Portuguese, and I'm trying to speak English to you, it's not going to work. So learning how the opposite sex communicates and and how they are in relationships. It's a lot of the coaching that I do in teaching people how to understand that dynamic and still how to get your needs met within that.
So can you share maybe a tip or two with our viewers in terms of how women should be engaging with the men? Definitely not the way they engage with their girlfriends, right?
No, definitely not. So, I think the most important thing is just always having awareness, right? So with men are very single focused. They're very good at doing one thing. And I read these books, I just read both of them, The Female Brain and The Male Brain. And it talks about how we literally we're different. Our cells are different, our hormones are different, so you have to communicate differently. So men are very good at being single focused. They're good at doing one thing. Like they're at work, they're working. When they're at home, they're at home. When they're watching football, they are watching football. Women are multi-focused. And it goes back to the hunter and gatherer days. It goes back to, you can't be like looking all around and the buffalo goes by and then you don't feed your family in the caveman days. So they have to be that way, and they're born that way, and their hormones are conducive for them to be that way. Women, we're the gatherers. We're chit-chatting while we're doing the berries. Hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And so when your man is watching football and you want the attention and you want to connect, that's not the time because he's doing that one thing. And so a lot of disagreements happen. That's just a very, obvious example, but a lot of disagreements happen because you don't have that awareness and understanding. So, if you have something, women tend to, not to generalize, but we do tend to want to talk through more and share more and so forth. Ask your man for permission. Don't try to do it while he's driving you to the restaurant or trying to accomplish a task, but ask him, hey, can I have your attention for 5 minutes? I just want to run something by you. And if you do that and you communicate in that way, it's a lot more effective for both. You feel heard. He feels really great because he listened and, did that one thing for that period of time. So again, just understanding how we're different, how to communicate with each other, and what to communicate about. But then circling back to the bigger picture, when you're not looking, you're not desperate for that attention, or you're not needing that void filled up, that sets you up for success too.
I'm curious, from a male point of view now, how much difference do you think it would make how men relate to women if they would have a better understanding of what women go through in terms of their menstrual cycle and their whole cycling every month? Because for me, it almost occurs like women go through every month the same thing what nature goes through an entire year.
Yes.
And I don't see that or experience that to be talked about anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it would be fabulous if you could just take a pill and for 1 month experience that complete upheaval. And it's because you go through the beautiful summer days, and you go through tornadoes, and you go through cyclones and all of these things hormonally, and it's scientific proven fact. But to a man, it's just like, wow, she's cranky. I mean, the worst thing, we all know, the worst thing you can say is it that time of the month? Because you just have no idea. And relationships are affected, and knowing.
It's actually always that time of the month, because it's a constant cycle.
Right. It is a constant cycle, and it's a flux. It's seasons, and you kind of have, just as again with women learning how men communicate and what's important to them, it would really benefit the men to learn how women communicate and needs, and just the signs, the signals of knowing, okay, she's getting a little crazy, or she just devoured a pint of Ben & Jerry's.
If they just knew which cycle you were in, that would make a huge difference, wouldn't it?
Exactly, because again, men want to figure things out. You guys are so great at solutions. You're so great at fixing things. So taking that on as a project and knowing,
that would be great.
She ate a carton of ice cream. Probably don't want to piss her off today. Those little things are important in the long-term happiness of a relationship.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, maybe you could start a program teaching men how to relate to women.
Do you think that would be a big seller? We're gonna start you a
In New York, no. I'm sorry. Okay.
We're gonna stick to the vision boarding and the designing the life you love. I think that's a better audience.
Okay. You know best. Okay. That's awesome. All right. So in terms of, have you ever got close to getting married?
Yes. Yeah. I've had a few quite serious relationships. One, it was very close to getting married, but it didn't work out. We had a lot of complicated dynamics and scheduling, lived in different countries and so forth. But it's definitely something that I want. I think it's very much on the horizon for the next year or two. Because I've done all the other things that I want to do, and I feel like I've experienced enough in relationships now to know what I'm doing a bit, and to really take that on as kind of the next project, the next, in a great way, learning how to communicate. It's great to pull back and learn all about yourself and how to communicate, and then communicating through life with another is a whole other level. So I feel that I'm really ready for that.
And then when you have more than two, that's a whole other.
Yes. Yes.
So this would be a great opportunity. I would love to have you do this, because I think it would benefit, again, to the viewers to hear it from somebody that has a lot of expertise in this, to describe the men of your life that you are looking for. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, I have my list on my iPhone.
Okay.
But just from the heart.
From the heart.
What's most important to me is aligned values. So somebody that sees the world similar to the way I see it, someone that's driven and passionate, very family-oriented, wants to create a family, wants someone positive, someone that just sees opportunity in things versus the negative. A good communicator is very important to me. I need somebody that is not a runner, that's not going to come across a challenge and then just bolt. That will talk through things and that will work through issues and challenges and know that it's not always perfect. Someone that makes me laugh and that I make laugh, that's really important. I think that I try to see life as if it's a Saturday Night Live skit most of the time.
It's really not that. It's not that serious, is it?
Yeah, I mean it can be if you choose to, and some people do, and that's rough. That's hard because But when you look at life, you leave your house and you try to just find the entertainment or the laughter and things. It makes it a lot more pleasant for you and for others. Also, someone that is spiritually minded in that, I've just now spent 18 years, a rough childhood, tons of therapy, gosh knows how many tens of thousands of dollars learning all these things. So someone that wants to raise a family with these kind of values and principles is important to me. And someone that's adventurous, that likes to try new things and has as much fun. I used to play this game when I lived in London. I had a girlfriend that I would text and I'd say, hey, meet me downstairs with 10 pounds. And we would just, on a Sunday, take what was it there, not the metro, but the tube, all day and just get off. One would just call it, get off here. And we would just try to spend just 10 pounds and make a whole day of it and have adventures. And so, I want to do that with my husband, and then I want to do it with our children. Ginger does it with me now, where we just leave the house at 8 in the morning and sometimes don't come back till midnight. And just, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate or expensive, but just can find entertainment in whatever the world has to offer. That's really important.
Yeah, well, that's really good. So I'm also curious because I feel that a lot of people don't talk about this before they get serious with someone. So I want to ask you these two things, and these two things are actually things that we don't talk about in the network. But the reason why it's coming to me right now is because it's being missed so much. So how would you deal with, in your relationship, with politics and with religion?
Interesting. Yes, those are big ones. So
yeah, big ones. Big one. People just put it under the carpet, but guess what? It's going to raise its ugly head sooner or later.
Yeah, so I just got into a discussion with someone I'm seeing about religion the other day, and this was brought up because I'm incredibly spiritual, but I'm not religious. I wasn't raised Catholic or Jewish. But I see the value in having that type of religion in your life. So for me personally, if you are of any religion, I can definitely appreciate that. I would be open to learning about it, possibly converting, but I can definitely value, the traditions and the thoughts behind that. Equally important to me is that somebody respects mine, and that they may get up and be reading the Quran or the Bible in the morning. Just let me meditate quietly, and then I think that people can collaborate with each other. Politics is the same way. If you're open to hearing it's all communication. People might think, oh, I have to have a Republican or I have to have a Democrat. Hear the person out. Hear why their views are important to them. And if you can respect that and not need to control that, nope, you have to think my way, then I believe people can be successful. It's when you have, it's like, do you want to be in a relationship or do you want to be right? Because generally, it's hard to have both sometimes. So determining if there's, an absolute no way deal breaker either in a religion or political situation, then no, don't engage in a relationship. But if you're consciously aware enough and spiritual enough to be able to accept their opinions and honor that, then I think people can be successful. And I've seen it. I've seen, a Jewish man and a Muslim, and I've seen all kinds of combinations where people are successful, and it's really respect. It's respect and understanding and communication.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, so I have two more.
I figured you would.
So what about money?
About money in relationships?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of times that doesn't get talked about much either, but the reason why we have, like, I think, 53 or 54% divorce rate is a big reason is because of money issues.
Yes.
It's either control issues or not knowing where the money is.
Absolutely. Again, it's shared values. It's how do you value money? Understanding, I'm going to use husband because I'm a female and that's what I'm looking for. So does your husband need to be the provider? You know, are your values aligned? Like, do you spend money the same way? Do you spend money like a crazy, you know, drunken sailor, or are you a saver? Talking about these things are so important. You know, where do you see your children going to public school, or they need to go to private school? And if they need to go to private school, are you both working to afford it, or can one afford it? You know, these things that don't just magically go away because you love each other are very important to talk about up front and make sure that you're aligned. You know, for me, that was something that was very important, is that I never wanted to get locked into being dependent on somebody. So as much as I would be happy to, you know, marry my daddy Warbucks, someone rich and famous, anything like that, it was also very important for me to have an established career and to make my own money so I can make my own decisions in life.
But what would you have to give up? I mean, you know, I wonder if, you know, women think about that when you marry into money, what would you have to give up?
Right. Yeah, or any money. You know, I have friends that are married and just the husband works, and that's great if that works for you. But they don't have the same freedom of making decisions or choices because, you know, that's just how their family dynamics are. And again, works for some, but if you're not somebody that works for, make sure you're making a choice in relationship about money so you're aligned.
Yeah, and you know, I'm noticing that the old models about money are kind of falling, you know, the wayside, because women are very capable of making tons of money these days. They are head of big corporations. Matter of fact, I'm curious. You know, how do you think people handle situations where they're in a relationship where the woman makes most of the money and the man maybe just handling family duties? Like the roles are reversed.
Yeah, that happens a lot these days. I think it goes back to, you know, we were talking about hunter-gatherer. We're talking about the communication and the dynamics. There definitely there's a difference. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you are a powerhouse, I'm a very driven woman. I've definitely scared away my fair share of guys, even powerful guys, because of that. You definitely have to be able to step back into a role that works in your relationship. You know, the masculine, feminine energy. Maybe you're the provider as far as bringing home the bacon, but at home, you know, allowing the man to be more in that role. Because there's a lot of inherent tendencies where that's, you know, polarity is a necessity in relationships. And a man feeling masculine and feeling like the provider is important. And that can show up in many different ways, but where I see a lot of challenges is when the woman comes home and she's domineering and, you know, this and isn't in her feminine, pretty energy, and then that's not attractive long term to either, you know, to either of them. So, so being conscious of that, being able to not turn it off because it's who you are, but being able to step into your feminine energy and, you know, and be that lacy, beautiful essence that a male needs.
Yeah. So you know where this brings us to, the fourth one.
So what?
Do you know where this conversation brings us to? It brings us to sex and intimacy.
Yes. Everything ends up there anyway.
This is all beautifully unfolding, right?
Yeah.
So what about that?
Love it. The more the merrier. But no, I think
that answers that question.
No, you know, and all jokingness aside, it's a very important part of relationships. I mean, the more, if things are working there, they're generally working other places. So, you know, never forgetting that that's important. And when we have so many roles, you know, you're an executive, you're a mom sometimes, you're a wife, that can be something that just gets, you know, I'm exhausted, put by the back burner. But you have to consciously choose to make that a priority in your relationship because it's, you know, hormonally, everything, oxytocin is created in women when they're having sex, and all of these things are so important. Men need sex every 4 days, physiologically, or they start to go a little cuckoo. So it's a proven fact. Knowing these things and knowing...
Every 4 days? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me.
Well, with another person, but no, it's very important that you know these things and that you're factoring that in because, again, it's just, you know, life is busy, but it's also short. So you have to make your choices and really make, if your relationship is important, that's an important thing to focus on.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, guess what? The conscious hour is gone, and this is how we prove to our guests and to the viewers that um, consciousness is really something that exists without time and space. Because when we're having fun like this and we're connected the way we are connected, where we're connected, time disappears.
Yes.
So I want to thank you very much, Bonnie. You were a lot of fun, and I just want to acknowledge you for what you do in the world, because I know that you're touching lives just like we are on the network, one person at a time. And I can't think of anything more important to do in the world right now than to help people to really become awakened. What I say is to come home to self. It's really, that's where everybody has the answers. They're not out there. My answers really were not in the Tony Robbins tapes, although the Tony Robbins tapes did help me to drive myself ultimately in here.
Very well said, yes.
So, so thank you, Bonnie. You were absolutely awesome. Thank you for being on the network. And for everybody else, if you were touched, moved, and inspired by anything Bonnie said, or maybe even I said, keep coming back to ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com and keep engaging with us and keep watching our shows. If you watch the shows plenty enough every month, they get to the top 10. And once they're in the top 10, they get qualified to go to public television. Thank you so much. See you guys tomorrow when we have another show in the evening time. See you later. I love you all. Bye, Bonnie.
Bye, thank you.